Hello and what's up, GSC Pokemon Challenges fam, how you guys doing? It is time for the final episode of the Whitney Minimum Battles series, just in time for Christmas. I'm gonna try to get this posted on the day. If it doesn't work, then it might be a day or two late, but still, Merry Christmas to you and yours. We have the final 16 challengers in this section. Today we've got Aerodactyl, Snorax, the 3 legendary birds of Kanto, Dragonair, Dragonite, Mewtwo, Mew, the 3 legendary dog cats of Johto, Tyranitar, we've got Lugia, Ho-Oh, and of course Celebi. And we've added quite a few member picks. We already had last week that we were going to do Delibird in honor of Q. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. And we had added the little worm Dratini for Darlax. I also have to thank TheProgrammedKnight for selecting Gastly. We're going to be running that one with Psywave to try to get through. We're going to have to go all the way back to Falkner for that one. And then there were 3 more channel members that didn't get me a pick in time, so I have assigned them Pokemon that I think are kind of interesting. We are going to add in our Omastar and our Kabutops for 2 of the channel members because these Pokemon made it all the way to Rival 2 and they just couldn't find ways through. In the case of Omastar, it did beat Bugsy, but just couldn't get through the Bayleaf. And in the case of Kabutops, it couldn't even beat Bugsy. So these 2 Pokemon need a little help, but they have some egg moves that I think will do a lot for them. And then sticking in with our kind of rock Pokemon theme, we're also going to add in Shuckle. Now, Shuckle doesn't really have any good egg moves. The only egg move for this Pokemon is Sweet Scent, which is not going to help it get through that Falkner section where it struggled, but I'm going to give it a TM move. I think that Shuckle with Rollout might be completely overpowered, and I want to see just how good or bad it is. It's one of those things where seeing Rollout in this section has made me convinced that the move is pretty overpowered, but it might be that a Pokemon as weak as Shuckle just isn't very good even with that move added on. Anyway, let's jump into the action and find out, and we're going to start with our fossils. I'm going to start with the Aerodactyl that's legitimately in the running, and then we're going to check in on that Omastar and Kabutops. Now, of course, Aerodactyl is incredibly fast and it already knows agility and bite, so it could go for some flinch strats here. We've also got stab, wing attack. The big issue here is just going to be that Rollout, if it builds up, could do a lot of damage to this Pokemon. And there really just aren't a lot of good moves for us to learn with the Aerodactyl here. Like, sure, we could go Headbutt if we want to. We should outspeed enough things to use Headbutt, and it might even be worth using Headbutt just because of the fact that we don't have much in the way of special attack, and we would probably be better off using our high physical attack with that move. And in fact, for the 2nd episode in a row, Teru in the underground is actually a bit of a wall. So I am in fact going to add on Headbutt here because it's going to be a lot better than trying to use wing attack. And with this move, it's still going to be 2 hit KOs here, but we could get flinches, so we might be able to get through the Magnemites just a little bit better, or we can critical hit them and one-shot them. Still, once we get paralyzed, it's kind of bad news for this Pokemon. Fortunately, Voltorb's stuck using only Tackle, so we get through very easily on the 2nd attempt, but it does make me a little bit nervous for this Pokemon that we don't have really good stab here. I mean, wing attack's going to be better than Headbutt once we get into the Whitney fight, but still, we might need to go for the flinch strats in order to actually win. Now, the big advantage we have, of course, is that we resist normal type moves, so as long as we don't get anything crazy from the Clefairy, the double slaps shouldn't do that much. We're going to take on Scary Carry first, of course, and I'm just going to go wing attack here. It is the strongest move in this case. We even get a 1-hit KO on that Pokemon. But now let's see how we do against Whitney herself. Aerodactyl's coming in at level 16 with 57 HP. We know wing attack, agility, bite, and headbutt. And we've got 45 attack, 32 defense, 30 special attack, 35 special defense, and 53 speed. We're already faster than the Miltank, so we don't even need to use agility in this fight. But let's just see how much damage we do with our moves. So first up against the Clefairy, wing attack looks to be a 2-hit KO range. It goes double slap, so that's going to be an easy KO. Out next is the Miltank, and let's just see the damage range here. We did 17 damage with the first wing attack, and its super effective rollout did a lot of damage back to us. Let's just see what Headbutt does here. It's not going to be as strong. It only did 11 damage. The difference is that it could get a flinch. just like we got there, and we're gonna lose the first attempt. I didn't even go with a berry on that first one, so let's take our gold berry from Machop and give it this time and see how much of a difference that makes, because we were taking an awful lot of damage from that rollout. So there's no need to change the strategy on Clefairy. It goes Water Gun. That was kind of bad, but we still get the 2-hit KO there. Now against this Miltank, I'm just very interested to see what kind of damage ranges we get. Our attack stat is so much higher than our special attack that I don't think Bite really gives us any advantage here. The bigger issue is just how many turns can we survive. Once she starts setting up a rollout, I'm gonna go for Headbutt to try to get a flinch, and we're gonna need a lot of hits to get this one to go. And the whole issue here is that we're in the slow level up group. If we were not a slow level up Pokemon, we might actually have better odds of getting through this fight. Here we get a nice flinch and then a rollout miss. I'm just gonna go all in on the wing attacks now. Sure, we heal with the gold berry, but it's really about the miss and the flinch. Once we get that, we can just easily knock her out. We just have to stop her from setting up all of those rollouts. But at only level 16, keep in mind, there are Pokemon that are getting the like level 20 here when they're in the medium slow level up group. We're just much lower in terms of defense than we would be if we were at the same level as our Pokemon. And that's really the kicker with these Pokemon today. We have tons and tons of challengers that are in the slow level up group. And when you're a slow level up Pokemon, you're just going to be at the absolute lowest level possible on minimum battles. That's always something that we just have to worry a little bit about as we go through the challenge. In fact, I expect that there's very likely going to be some slow level up group Pokemon that are technically stronger that get knocked out as we go further and further in this challenge, as opposed to some weaker Pokemon that are in the medium slow level up group and thus get a lot more levels, especially in these early sections, that just because they get those extra levels, they turn out to be much better. So in honor of new channel member Luckpup, we are running Lord Dome, the Kabutops that has been given Aurora Beam and Bubble Beam, two moves that it can learn as egg moves, technically as a Kabuto, but all you would have to do in order to get these moves on this Pokemon would be to breed with a Remoraid or an Octillery, and you can get both of these moves as egg moves. Obviously, Bubble Beam is a very good same type move that, while we don't have great special attack, is going to be pretty good in neutral situations. And we get Aurora Beam, which answers two of the major issues in this section of the game, specifically Bugsy's Scyther and Rival 2's Bayleaf. Now, we may end up still using Fury Cutter to get through the Bayleaf, I'm not sure, but we're going to start off on Bugsy and just see if this moveset is enough. So against the Metapod, I'm just going to go all in on the Bubble Beam since it's going to be a 2-hit KO from the looks of things, and because we're just using our same type move and they can't boost their defense against it, we easily get through the Metapod and the Kakuna onto the Scyther, where I'm just going to spam the Aurora Beam, and that first one did 15 damage, so this is actually a 4-hit KO with this move, and even after healing with a berry, we get knocked out. But clearly we just need one critical hit here and we're going to get through this fight. This time we get a better range, it's 3 hits to knock that Scyther out, and we have defeated Bugsy. And with Bugsy successfully defeated, we now have Fury Cutter as an available move, but I'm going to try this moveset as it is first against the rival just to see, because maybe Aurora Beam is enough against that Bayleaf, but if it's not, then we know what we've got to do. We've got to set up the Fury Cutter on that first Gastly, and as long as we build it up enough, we should just one-shot the Bayleaf. While we are only at level 15 here, we are fast enough that we should be able to outspeed in this fight, so it should just be a matter of landing the hits. So first attempt against the rival here, I'm just going to go for the Bubble Beams on the first Gastly. Remember, last time we were stuck using Absorb here, we get paralyzed, which is like the worst case scenario. Now our rival's Razor Leaf is just going to do way too much damage and we lose, but let's try this one again, hopefully outspeeding, just so that we can see what kind of range we get. So this time we get through the Gastly with no damage. We can see the Aurora Beam right here did about a third to the Bayleaf. We did 18 damage there, so it's still going to hit Razor Leaf and one-shot us. So this is not going to be possible to get through just with the Aurora Beams. We're simply going to have to use the Fury Cutter strat to get through this one. So I'm going to forget scratch in order to learn Fury Cutter. Obviously, we can learn better normal type moves in the next section, so I think this is the best way to go. So in that case, what I'm going to do is set up one Bubble Beam here to take the Gastly down in health. That was not what we wanted to see. We did way too much damage and then we got paralyzed. Paralysis is an auto reset on this fight. We get put to sleep this time, but once we wake up, we get to knock out the Gastly with 2 Fury Cutters, and now the Fury Cutter did almost enough. The Bayleaf missed its Razor Leaf, and now we can just Aurora Beam it down. So we would have needed to set up one more Fury Cutter on that first Gastly in order to make this one consistent, but still, it would just be a matter of getting 4 Fury Cutters in a row, but you also have to not be paralyzed by Lick. So maybe if we had used Aurora Beam to do a little less damage to the Gastly, we could have gotten it to go. But regardless, hey, 1 miss, that's all we needed. It's about a 5% chance for that Razor Leaf miss to come in, and we get through the rival without too much issue there once we added on the Fury Cutter strat. And now, of course, going into the Whitney section, we don't have quite as much to worry about here. We have Headbutt and Rollout as potential new moves, and we've got the rock typing, so we at least resist the normal type moves here, and that should help us with getting through this next fight. Rollout is honestly going to be the strongest play just because it is same type, plus it gives us that advantage of having the built up damage with our higher attack stat, but it might not matter. We may be able to just get through either way. And fortunately, against things like Magnemite, Bubble Beam is not resisted, so you can simply use Bubble Beam on these steel types in order to knock them out pretty quickly. In spite of our weakness to electric, we never even have to face down their electric type moves. So now as we come into the gym, we can take on Mary Carey. She might even be Mariah Carey, I don't know, it is Christmas season, and we're just going to sit here and spam some Bubble Beams. It's going to be a 3-hit KO on this Pokemon. In spite of our low special attack, we easily get through that fight, and it's on to Whitney. So here, Lord Dome, question mark, is coming in with 54 HP at level 17. We know Aurora Beam, Harden, Bubble Beam, and Fury Cutter. I'm not even sure we need to set up Harden here, but we'll see. We're coming in with 50 attack, 47 defense, 33 special attack, 35 special defense, and only 39 speed, so we're not going to outspeed the Miltank here, but it probably doesn't matter. Let's find out. So here against the Clefairy, I honestly think the best play is just to start setting up Fury Cutter, given the fact that we know this is going to build up damage, and by the time we get to the Miltank, we will have hit 4 Fury Cutters there on the Clefairy. We get to level 18, it goes Rollout, we just one-shot it with a Fury Cutter. So yeah, Lord Dome has no issues whatsoever getting through Whitney. In spite of the fact that it struggled hard against Rival 2, Whitney is an absolute cakewalk for this Pokemon. So what we can say definitively there is, even if you were doing a solo challenge and you weren't going to use any egg moves, once you manage to get through Bugsy and Rival 2, you're going to just cruise through this Whitney section. Now, as far as the next section against Morty, I'm not sure how it's going to go, but Luckpup, if you want to keep this Pokemon, go ahead and let me know. Otherwise, if you want a different Pokemon, drop me a comment, because, you know, when I get to these final episodes of a section, if I don't get a pick in time, I just try to pick something that I find kind of interesting for that channel member, and a lot of people have commented about the Kabutops and whether or not it should have been able to get through the last section. I think we've demonstrated pretty clearly that if it wasn't going to get through Bugsy, it wasn't going to be able to get through the rival, but once it does, that Fury Cutter is pretty darn good. Now, of course, it would have been utterly sacrilegious to only run Lord Dome here and not run Lord Helix, so we have assigned Lord Helix to Ashryver. Thank you very much for your support, Ash. We are coming in now to the Rival 2 fight. We've already beaten Bugsy with this Pokemon, but we're once again going to add on the moves Aurora Beam and Bubble Beam. In addition to Bite and Withdraw, we got rid of Constrict. That move is just trash. We don't need it. Let's see if we can find a way through now with this moveset. Keeping in mind, we have much better special attack than attack with this Pokemon, so we might just do enough damage with that Aurora Beam. Maybe it takes a critical hit to get through. We do not have something like Fury Cutter to lean on here, so we're just gonna have to hope that this moveset is enough. So against the Gastly, there's not much to do other than just bite it. We get a critical hit one-shot, which is very nice. And here we are just slower than the Bayleaf. And that is the big issue. We simply get one-shot by a critical hit Razor Leaf there, and there wasn't anything that we could do about that situation. So the only way that we're gonna have a chance here is if we get that miss from the Razor Leaf to at least least see if we do enough damage that maybe Aurora Beam is worth it. So here, when we finally got the Razor Leaf miss, we can see that we hit Aurora Beam and it did 26 damage here. So it is a 2-hit KO, but I think a crit would one-shot this Pokemon. The issue is that the odds of getting a 5% chance to miss plus a 6% chance to crit is absolutely insane. So this one's functionally not possible. So the only other strategy to test out here is if Rollout would be able to get through in this case. In this case, we 2-shot the Gastly. We still have to get the miss from the Bayleaf though. Let's just see what kind of range it takes. The other thing that we're going to do is give the Quick Claw. You could technically trade this Pokemon to another cartridge, give it the item, and then trade it back, with the idea being of just getting more opportunities to move first and therefore hit the rival. Obviously, it's not going to be great if we need a critical hit here by any means, but we'll still just test this out, because if we get that turn to move first, we'll at least get to see the ranges faster. So this time we moved first on the Bayleaf. We hit the Rollout, but it's only the 3rd turn of Rollout here, and we can see it still survived with 15 HP remaining. So Rollout would also have to be a critical hit in order to knock this Pokemon out. And so with those 2 tests done, we found that Aurora Beam doesn't work because it only does about half damage, and Rollout doesn't work because it doesn't build up enough damage, which means the last thing that we could possibly try in order to get Lord Helix through Rival 2 is of course to go unreasonable TMs and throw on Blizzard. Now I just changed the move with Game Hook, so I'm going to heal so that I have the proper amount of PP. But now with this move, if we get the Quick Claw to activate, we might be able to one-shot that Bayleaf. Let's find out. And remember, we're using the Quick Claw here just to see what would happen with a little more speed than what we would have to do if we just reset for the Bayleaf to miss a Razor Leaf. We pretty much get to the Bayleaf every time thanks to the fact that Bite can always one-shot the Gastly there. And this time we missed the Blizzard, so we didn't even get to see the range. It's kind of an issue that they made Blizzard only 70% accurate in Gen 2. Here we finally hit the Blizzard, and we see the Bayleaf survives with 2 HP remaining. Now that might have been a bad damage roll. Remember, there's a random number that's attached to the end of a damage calculation that ranges between basically 86% and 100% of the damage you should do. So it's possible that with a good roll, we do end up one-shotting here. It's just not going to be consistent, even with a move as strong as Blizzard. This time we get it down to 1 HP remaining, but still not quite enough to get the KO. But that does tell us at least that the first hit was not a perfect range, so we've got to keep trying this a few more times to see if we actually can manage to hit Blizzard and if it's possible to hit the one-hitter or not. This time instead we get a range where the Bayleaf ends up on 4 HP, but it missed a Razor Leaf and it gets frozen. Keep in mind that could happen 10% of the time, and once it's frozen we basically have a win. But what we can say pretty definitively with this Pokemon is that it never has that Bayleaf in a one-hit KO range. Or if it does, it requires like a perfect roll that's very unlikely to actually get. So does this Pokemon win on minimum battles? Technically no. Even with the strongest move, it's still basically failing there. Granted, if you just went and gained 1 level, you probably do get the ranges that you would need in order to get that fight to go with the Blizzard, but at that point it's kind of unreasonable anyway. Still, I'm going to keep testing this because I want to see how it does it in the next section, but the fact that we've already gone for an unreasonable TM makes me really nervous about this Pokemon going forward. Still, I just had to try it. I had to see what kinds of moves would even be possible here, because there's a lot of cases where I think people just assume that, well, if we added on stronger moves, we would be guaranteed to win or something like that. Slow level up Pokemon really throw a wrench in that, because if you're just 1 point of speed too slow for that Bayleaf, keeping in mind this is max TVs, this is the strongest possible Omastar at this level, it still just is completely ridiculous to try to progress on minimum battles with this Pokemon. And there will come a point where a lot of these challengers are just going to find a situation where they can no longer progress, that no matter what we do, no matter how strong a move we give them, it's so incredibly luck-based or so incredibly unreasonable that while you might technically have a range eventually that gets through a fight, it's not going to be good enough to justify moving on. And I would argue that technically this Omastar deserves to not move on in this challenge. Still, I want to see how it does against Whitney here at least, and we'll see if Ashryver wants to carry this one forward or just wants to throw this one aside and pick a better Pokemon. But yeah, I'm kind of surprised that Rollout wasn't good enough, but I guess it's due to our lower attack stat. Still, I figured as a same type move it would be pretty strong, but not strong enough to get through the Bayleaf. Still, now we can come into Whitney's gym. I'm just going to spam Bubblebeam here. I think that's the only move that we actually need. We can also get a speed drop with this move on the Miltank. Might be enough. So Lord Helix is coming in at level 17 with 57 HP. We've got Bubblebeam, Withdraw, Bite, and Blizzard on the moveset. And we've got 32 attack, 54 defense, 50 special attack, 35 special defense, and 30 speed. I'm just going to drop a potion real quick and let's get into this fight. So first up against Whitney on the Clefairy, I'm just going to go for Bubblebeam. This is going to be a 3-hit KO, but of course Double Slap will do basically nothing, and Mimic is just a waste of time. We easily knock that Pokemon out and get to level 18. Now on the Miltank, I'm going to go for Bubblebeam. She went Stomp the first turn. Now she goes for Rollout, but once she does that, she's just guaranteeing the win because she can't stop using it. And just like that, Lord Helix struggles like crazy on Rival 2, even with the most overpowered moves, gets to Whitney and completely destroys her. And then this Pokemon, unlike the Kabutops that we just ran, knows Bite, so it should do reasonably well in the next section. We're not really worried about the Magnemite because we're going to get Surf. Surf's going to be plenty strong to get through that. And yeah, like once you get through Rival number 2, I think by the time we get to Rival number 3, we could actually set up a Rollout before the Bayleaf and use it to get through. So I don't know. I think this Pokemon's probably a lot better going forward, and it would be kind of interesting to see if Rival 2 is the only place where it really hits a wall in the entire run, because I think at this point, like, Rival number 3 is still harder than Morty, if I have to guess, but I think by the time that we get to Rival 4, he's weaker than a lot of the gym leaders. Like, we would be having much more trouble with Jasmine, with Chuck, with Price, certainly with Claire, than we do with Rival number 4. I don't think I've ever really seen him be a major wall. But we'll just have to see. For now, Ashryver, thank you very much for your support. Thank you to Luckpup as well. I've assigned these Pokemon to you, but again, if you want something different, just drop me a comment and let me know. For now, Lord Helix and Lord Dome, we're going to see how they do in the next section. Lord Dome feels legit. Feels like he should be here now that he got egg moves. Lord Helix is a little sus, but might actually end up being the better fossil moving forward. We'll just have to see. And with those Pokemon done, we have completed 2 of the channel member picks for today. We've still got quite a few more to go, but we'll work them in as we move on. For now, I want to move on to our Snorlax, the lone normal type in today's episode, and let's just see how it performs in this section. Now, Snorlax was one of my original test Pokemon just to figure out if this concept would even work. Now, I only played through the Bugsy section with these Pokemon, and when I was running that Snorlax, I was actually running it without any TMs. In fact, you can manage to get through Rival 2 with this Pokemon by simply using struggle strats. With that being said, however, we are now on to the Whitney section where I have not tested this Snorlax before, but I still think it's going to be pretty overpowered. We've got a pretty good attack stat together with really great HP, and obviously we're not fast, but we should be tanky enough in order to survive here. And of course, in the worst case scenario, we can go for the Defense Curl rollout strat to completely destroy this section of the game. So I think that's our go-to if we have any struggles whatsoever, but I'm going to go in with our moveset as it currently is. We have Defense Curl on the moveset, we have Tackle as a same type move, and of course we've got Mud Slap in order to lower the opponent's accuracy. So of course we can come into Mary Carey here and just go all in on the tackles. She's charming, which is actually a good strategy here against our Snorlax, but I don't think it's going to matter. I still think we're going to win this one every time, just thanks to the fact that we're so so bulky. And after a quick heal, it's time to get into the Whitney fight with Snorlax. We're coming in at level 16 with 83 HP, Tackle, Amnesia, Mudslap, and Defense Curl on the moveset. We've got 46 attack, 32 defense, 31 special attack, 46 special defense, and 21 speed. So I'm going to give the Gold Berry here just to be safe, but let's just see if this moveset is enough, and if it's not, we'll think about adding on that rollout. So first up against the Clefairy, I'm going to set up a couple of defense curls here just to have higher defense. It uses Hydro Pump and then mimics Defense Curl from us, but we'll go for the tackles now. It can raise its defense, but I don't think that's going to make a huge difference here, and we end up knocking out the Clefairy nice and easy. Out next is the Miltank. Let's see the damage range here. We only did 8 damage with the tackle, so of course we would need to get some accuracy drops here if we're going to win. So I'm going to go all in on the accuracy. We have already used the Gold Berry here, but now we are definitely in a situation where we can just slowly whittle this Pokemon down. In fact, I'm going to go for all the defense curls here because of the fact that she's also going to use Milk Drink. Getting our defense stat up as high as possible should at least help us have a better chance of getting through this one. The problem is that we're attracted now, and the Miltank is doing decent damage with Stomp in spite of the fact that we've set up a bunch of defense buffs, and it has Milk Drink to just kind of stall us out. Now it has run out of PP in Stomp, so it's stuck using Rollout, which it keeps missing. So if we can get it to use up all of its Milk Drinks, we might actually be able to get through this. And at this point, she has no Milk Drinks left, so she's just stuck trying to use Rollout on us, and we're trying to hit her through Infatuation. But one more hit, and just like that, we beat Whitney on the first attempt. That was tedious as all get out, but we did manage to beat Whitney with Snorlax without even adding on any additional TM moves. Of course, it all comes back to the fact that we are so incredibly survivable there. We have so much HP, and once we add on all the defense curls, she can't deal that much damage to us, and she just has a finite amount of PP. If this were Gen 1 and she could just use moves infinitely, we would have lost, but we managed to find a way through. So we are going to save that rollout and all of the elemental punches for the next section. We'll find out if we need them or not. Mudslap? Who knows? Quick Claw plus Mudslap might be enough just given our high attack stat, but odds are we do get hit by Curse and we're going to be in bad shape, so we're going to have to figure out a strategy that works for Snorlax. But for now, we are progressing in the game on minimum battles. But with that kind of tedious fight done with the Snorlax, let's move on to a Pokemon that should have a really good matchup against our Snorlax. That, of course, is the channel member pick Gastly from TheProgrammedKnight. We're running Gastwave because we're going to be stuck using Psywave. Now, I'm going back all the way to the beginning of the game because, of course, a normal Gastly had to use struggle strats even to get to Falkner's gym, whereas here we have Psywave on the moveset, so we technically have another way that we could damage opponents to try to get through the early game. The question is, how does it work in practice? So I'm going to test this out starting on rival number 1. Now, of course, this should be a guaranteed win because the rival only knows Scratch is a damage dealing move which can't affect a ghost, so we should do a pretty good job of just getting through this first Pokemon and getting our first level up. And now to youngster Mikey, the advantage that we have is that we cannot be damaged by normal type moves. So while Lick could not affect this Pidgey or the Rattata that comes out next, which is why we would get to using Struggle here, in this case we have Psywave, so let's just use it. It's not going to do necessarily good damage, but we do hit the first Pidgey, and as long as we hit, we should deal damage to these Pokemon at least, and then it's just a question of what kind of ranges we get with the Psywave, where it can do anything from 0 to 1.5 times our level in damage, so the average is 2/3 of your level. Once you're at level 8, it's doing about 6 damage per hit on average. At our current level 7, it's probably more like something like maybe 4 to 5 damage on average, depending on rounding, but still, it gives us at least a way to damage our opponents without having to rely on struggle strats. So now in the gym, I think we're going to rely on Hypnosis plus the Psywave in order to get through, so let's just see how it actually works out. The Spearow here is actually faster than us, and we actually have to hit Hypnosis if we're going to get any chance to win here. We miss every single one on the first attempt against Honest Abe. He is still keeping us honest in spite of the fact that we have egg moves. We do manage to beat him on the next attempt, programmed, and we get a free win against Rod because he can't actually damage us with either of his Pokemon. They're just using Tackle. So let's make our way straight to Falkner. Now against Falkner, of course, our advantage is that we're faster than his Pokemon. So as long as we can put the Pidgey to sleep, we can start using Psywave to try to get through this. With some good ranges, we do manage to get through the first Pidgey. We're onto the Pidgeotto, which we also outspeed. Gust does decent damage here. We're gonna have to heal with the berry, but this really comes down to actually getting Hypnosis to hit on this Pokemon. Now a couple attempts later, we do actually have the Pidgeotto asleep. The problem is that Psywave is not perfectly accurate, so we missed when it had 2 HP remaining. We might have been able to win there, but unfortunately it just didn't work out. But if we can just get the right ranges, we could get through this Pokemon. Here with 1 HP remaining, we finally get the hit that knocks the Pidgeotto out. It's taken 8 attempts to get that one. Still probably a pretty lucky range overall, because that fight is going to be incredibly inconsistent. It depends both on the ranges you get from Psywave and actually getting Falkner to sleep with Hypnosis. So it's not a way that I recommend fighting this gym. You're going to be here for a while probably, but it is possible to get through. And now I don't expect us to struggle very much in this next section against the Team Rockets. We resist Poison, Bug, normal type moves don't affect us, so we should be able to get through this section pretty easily. So let's make our way straight on to the boss battles of this section, which are of course going to be Rival 2 and Bugsy. Now arguably the best strategy is to go straight to Bugsy here. The advantage that we have against him is that the first Metapod can't damage us. The Kakuna, while it can damage us, is only using Poison Sting, and then the final Scyther can only damage us with Fury Cutter, and we may be able to use our Spite in order to just use up all the PP in Fury Cutter, thus guaranteeing a win. Still, I think we have to go in with a berry just to be safe, and let's see if the Programmed Knight can finally beat the second gym with his Pokemon. So on the Metapod, I think there's nothing to do but just sit here and spam Lick on this Pokemon. Like, sure, he can go Harden or something, but he's mostly just trying to lower our speed. And sure enough, after we lick that Pokemon down, we get a level up and learn Curse. I'm going to learn Curse, and I'm going to forget Psywave in order to make this work. So now the Kakuna comes out, I'm simply going to sit here and lick the Kakuna over and over again. This Pokemon will go down perfectly fine. It's not going to do that much damage to us this entire time, and we can eventually knock it out. Now when we get to the final Scyther, it's going to go Fury Cutter, of course. I'm going to put it to sleep. I'm going to Curse at this Pokemon. We can simply heal with the berry, and now we're just going to spam Spite. Like, yes, Lick can do damage, but I'm more concerned with just using up its PP and Fury Cutter, and it's simply going to go down at this point because it doesn't have enough HP. And just like that, we get through Bugsy nice and easy, and we are moving on in the game. So at this point, we can simply go ahead and fight against the rival here. Psywave managed to get us through the first gym at least, and now at this point, we don't have to worry about that move anymore. We are going to be faster already than our rival's Gastly, so we can put it to sleep. We're just going to lick this Pokemon down. It's an easy 2-hit KO. Out comes the Zubat. We're going to kind of go for the same strategy here. We just need to actually land Hypnosis, and then we will just start licking away at the bat. Once it wakes up, it confused us, but we'll just put it back to sleep. We should have put a berry on this one though. And honestly, Zubat is the toughest opponent here because of the fact that it has access to Bite, and we don't really have anything great to use against it. I wanted to use Curse there, but we actually have to get the Pokemon to sleep first. Essentially, anytime that we miss the first Hypnosis on the Zubat, we just reset because we know that we're not going to get the ranges that we want. This time we do manage to get the Zubat to sleep, so I'm going to Curse at it so that it starts taking some chip damage. It wakes up and misses the Supersonic. We're going to try to put it back to sleep. It used Supersonic again. We miss Hypnosis, but it goes down to the Curse right there. We're going to heal up with our berry, and now this comes down to landing Hypnosis on the Croconaw and hopefully just whittling this Pokemon down. Now it does hit Water Gun on us, but if it stays asleep long enough, we will be able to win this fight. It's just a matter of how many turns it sleeps, and it stays asleep long enough there, so 12 attempts to get through rival number 2. It's not perfectly consistent, but we did manage to get it to go. And with that, I think we already know the strategy for the next section based on what we've already seen with Pokemon like Haunter and Gengar. I'm simply going to learn Nightmare, and I'm going to forget Lick. We can get better damage dealing moves anyway. This move's basically useless in this section of the game. game. So I think that's going to be the way to go. I'm going to keep the Lick just for now so that we can use it in the underground. But after that, we're going to simply learn Nightmare and I think make pretty quick work of this section. And it's important to note, there are situations like this where you can add on an egg move that gets you through one gym, but you don't necessarily want to keep it the whole game. Psywave is by far one of the worst Pokemon moves ever created, just because of its complete randomness and the fact that it's not affected by stab or, super effectiveness or anything. It's just kind of a trash move. I would consider it one of the worst moves ever made. So for that reason, I'm going to get rid of moves like that pretty quick whenever I can. And here it just made too much logical sense to add on Curse and just let that be on our moveset. And we know Spite can be really, really useful because we can use it to manipulate our opponent's PP. So with all of that done, we are now into Whitney's gym, where I'm simply going to slap on the Nightmare, and I think this is the way that we're going to get through this section nice and easy. Starting off with Mary Carey, of course, we're going to put her to sleep. We are going to spam Nightmare. She wakes up immediately, but we put her back to sleep. We'll curse at her now, and then start nightmaring her and just watch her lose lots of HP just like that. We can go Spite on Scary Face, who cares? She easily goes down and we win on the first attempt right there. Now it's time to make our way into the Whitney fight, where the one disadvantage that we have as we come in with our level 20 Gastly that has 49 HP with Curse, Nightmare, Hypnosis, and Spite on the moveset is that our speed is only 45. We are not going to outspeed the Miltank, and we're coming in with 27 attack, 25 defense, 52 special attack, 26 special defense, like I said, 45 speed. I think we're gonna have to use the Nightmare strats exclusively on the first Clefairy, and then we're gonna have to heal up with a Goldberry in this one and hope that that is enough to get us through the Miltank, because we're gonna have to take hits whenever it does wake up. Of course, if we can set up Curse and Nightmare, it should only take 3 turns after we get it to sleep to knock it out. So as long as we get a nice long sleep, we should win this one. Let's see if it actually works. So first up, Clefairy, we have to put this Pokemon to sleep, of course. Then we're going to simply Nightmare it. And fortunately, Clefairy cannot directly damage us with anything, so we're just going to kind of waste turns while it's asleep and hope it just stays asleep for 4 turns so that it can simply go down. In fact, it takes 5 turns because it doesn't have an even amount of HP, so the rounding caused it to survive 1 extra turn there. Now out comes the Miltank. It goes rollout. We have to hit the Hypnosis. It missed the second rollout. Very nice. So we get that advantage at least. We're going to Nightmare now. We're going to Curse, and this will of course allow us to heal up with the Berry. And now we're just going to use Spite here. Unfortunately, it's hitting rollout, but we put it back to sleep, and it shouldn't matter now. It should simply go down to the Curse. So just like that, first attempt, we managed to win. We get to learn Nightshade. I'm not sure if we want Nightshade. This moveset might be enough, but just in case, I'm actually going to give the Nightshade over Spite. I think this is the way to go, just because at least Nightshade gives us a way to damage opponents, so we can put them to sleep, curse them, nightmare them, and then use Nightshade just to make them go down a little bit faster. It could help in some tough spots, and obviously we can't curse on everything. We can only curse on like 1 Pokemon, maybe 2 Pokemon per battle, assuming that we take no damage. So in that case, it's kind of nice to have a damage dealing move. I know I went without the Nightshade with the Gengar, but I think Gengar, unlike Gastly, is going to have a lot more good damage dealing moves, whereas Gastly, it doesn't get those elemental punches, so it's going to be kind of starved for moves in the near term. And this might be the way that it can actually get through a Pokemon like Jasmine Steelix by simply taking advantage of the fact that it can deal fixed damage rather than having something where it's, trying to get ranges with a particular move. But just like that, let me say a huge thank you to TheProgrammedKnight for supporting Gastly and supporting this channel. We have the entire Gengar line. Moving on to the next section against Morty. I think it's poetic. We deserved to beat Whitney here. Yeah, I think we got this going. I think Gastly's gonna be pretty strong for a while. It was really just getting through that first Falkner section where Mud Slap is too much for it. Once we get through that, we're actually kind of good. So yeah. Now first up for our legendary birds, we have Articuno. Now, full disclosure, I actually played through all of these legendaries except for Entei when I realized that I wasn't recording. So I actually know the results and kind of what's going to happen here. I'm kind of sad that I didn't get the recording though, because there were a couple of very interesting spots. We'll see if we can reproduce them or not, or if it just turns out that the luck is not going to happen twice, but we'll just have to see. It starts with this Articuno though that has a 4x weakness to rollout. We're going to see the ranges are pretty tough here. Of course, not in the underground. All of these trainers are completely easy, even though we're weak against Teru and his electric type moves. Even just sitting here and spamming Powder Snow is enough to get us through these fights without any major issue. But now what I'm actually going to do is come here and get access to the Quick Claw. The key here is that we're going to try to hit that Miltank first, in spite of the fact that we are slower with our Articuno. So as we come into the Mary Carry fight, we can simply go all in on the Powder Snow in this first fight. Last time we got a freeze. Oh, we get a freeze again this time. And then I'm just going to gust here because, hey, you know, gusts, they're cold too. In fact, I think gust should have been an ice type move, but that's just my personal opinion. Anyway, we have made it to Whitney with our Articuno at level 16 with 61 HP. We have Powder Snow, Gust, and Mist, and we have 38 attack, 43 defense, 41 special attack, 51 special defense, and only 38 speed. I am going to, instead of giving the Goldberry, give my Articuno the Quick Claw. And the whole issue is the damage ranges that I think we're about to see. So on this first Clefairy, of course, the best play is to go for the Gust. It will do the most damage, but Powder Snow has the chance to freeze. Either way, we're looking at approximately a 4-hit KO here to knock this Pokemon out. Out next comes the Miltank. We go Powder Snow. We got the Quick Claw to activate, but you'll also notice that it hit us with the first rollout, and that first rollout did nearly half damage, which means that once it powers up, even if we heal with the Goldberry here, we're just getting knocked out in 2 turns. So the only way that we can get through this one is if we get a freeze on the Miltank. So this time we get the freeze on the second attempt, and Powder Snow is the stronger move here. Unfortunately, Miltank thawed out, which is something that they added in Gen 2. In Gen 1, if you froze an opponent, as long as you didn't hit them with a fire move and they didn't have an item, you were guaranteed to win. But here in Gen 2, they can thaw themselves out and there's nothing we can do about it. We need a nice long freeze if we're going to get through this one. So once again, we get the freeze here only to have the Miltank defrost. So this is going to take quite a while. Attempt number 9, we get another freeze. This time it looks like it might even stay frozen, and in fact it does. So it took 9 attempts to get through Whitney there with this Articuno. It is possible, but it's all about freeze luck, not just landing the freeze, but getting a long enough freeze that you can actually keep the Pokemon out of commission for the 7 turns that it takes to knock that Miltank out with Powder Snow. And there aren't really a whole lot of better TMs to add here. I mean, we could add Mud Slap or we could add Swift, but neither of those moves are really doing that much for us. So the only move that would give us better ranges there really is Blizzard. We'd still be looking for the freeze in order to win, so we'd still be wanting to go Quick Claw strats and trying to get the Blizzard freeze, but at least then we would have better odds of getting through that fight. Outside of that though, it's gonna be luck based. In spite of the fact that Articuno is one of the strongest Pokemon in the game, it just has the issue of being in the slow level up group, so it doesn't gain enough levels to actually deal meaningful damage there. Still, Articuno does move on. Let's check in on Suicune. Now that brings us to Suicune, who actually has a much better situation here. It's not weak to rollout or stomp or anything like that, and it has Bubblebeam on the moveset. Bubblebeam, of course, is a 65 base power move that is also same type, so it's going to do a lot more damage with its special attacks than we were just doing with that Articuno. And because we've got Bite and Bubblebeam, we have no issues here in the underground against any of these trainers. Bite is perfectly good for taking out these Slowpokes in a single hit, and Bubblebeam, funny enough, is neutrally effective against steel types. I always found that really strange, but it works, so we can easily get through these fights. The whole issue holding these Pokemon back though is just the fact that they are in the slow level up group. If these Pokemon with these stats were in a faster level up group, the legendaries would be completely overpowered on minimum battles, but you you often find that in spite of the fact that these Pokemon are legendaries, the slow level up group has a potential to actually stop them from beating the game on minimum battles. In fact, in Gen 1, I wasn't able to beat the game on minimum battles with any of the legendary birds without going for some sort of generic TM in order to get them through a certain part of the game, because they simply didn't have the movesets to get the job done. Articuno was the best of the Gen 1 birds, but that was simply because it had super effective moves and could freeze things until it got to Lorelei. Once it hit Lorelei in Gen 1, it simply hit a wall. It didn't have any coverage in order to try to get through. At least in Gen 2, you could technically get a hidden power fighting or hidden power electric or something to get you through Pokemon like that. But here, we're still going to have the same issue when we get to Price of not having good moves against Price's gym. That's a problem for later in the challenge, but for now, we're going to bring Suicune into this gym and I think completely destroy Mary Carey here. We're just going to go blow bubbles at her, and it's going to be an easy 2-hit KO to knock out the Snubbull, and we are on to Whitney. We're coming in right now with Suicune to the Whitney fight at level 16 with 64 HP, Bubblebeam, Leer, and Bite on the moveset. We're holding a berry. Not sure if we need the gold berry or not, but we're going to come in with 35 attack, 48 defense, 40 special attack, 48 special defense, and 38 speed, so we're still going to be outsped. We could get a speed drop with Bubblebeam. That's actually what happened in the last attempt that I had, but let's see if this is enough. So Bubblebeam on the Clefairy is going to be a 3-hit KO. We can just see that we got a speed drop, and that could be a way that we could get through this Miltank. If we just lower its speed once, we'll get an extra hit. This is looking like a 4-hit KO with Bubblebeam here. We didn't get a speed drop that time, but if we had just gotten one critical hit, we should have gotten through that one. So back to Miltank on the next attempt. It misses the second rollout, and I'm pretty sure that's all we needed. Here we land the 4th hit and knock it out. So as long as it misses once, or you get a critical hit, or you get a speed drop so that you get an extra hit at the end, you will beat Whitney with Suicune without too much difficulty. I wouldn't say it's consistent per se, but it's certainly reasonable. You can get it to go within a few attempts, provided one of those 3 things happens. So arguably, of the legendary Pokemon, at this point, Suicune is looking like the best. It might just be the Pokemon that has the best shot to get through the entire game, and it kind of makes sense. It's the mascot of Pokemon Crystal. And in the next section, it's going to have Bite on the moveset as well as Bubblebeam. We can upgrade to get to Surf if we need to. So plenty of options to get us through Rival 2 and Morty. Still, we'll have to see how it works out. For now, let's move on to our electric type legendaries with Zapdos and Raikou. And that brings us to Zapdos, which again, just like Articuno, doesn't get a whole lot of moves here. Basically, Mud Slap and Swift are the only reasonable TMs that we can slap on here. Of course, we could get Thunder if we get really desperate, but the issue with this Pokemon is that we don't have access to something like Freeze. We do have access to Paralysis, but Paralysis is definitely not nearly as good here, considering that it's only a 1 in 4 chance that our opponent doesn't move. However, we do get the advantage of maybe getting an extra hit here and there, especially because we'll be able to outspeed no matter what after we paralyze our opponent. It's one of those things where in competitive Pokemon, a move like Thunder Wave is actually really useful because they ban and or limit so many statuses, but in a vacuum, Paralysis is honestly one of the worst statuses to have on your opponent because it just doesn't really give you that much of an advantage. Still, if we can paralyze the Miltank and maybe get 1 or 2 turns where it doesn't manage to hit us with the rollout, that might be enough to get through this one, but I'm definitely thinking we're going to need the Gold Berry. We have the advantage compared to Articuno that we're not 4 times weak to rollout at least, so we should be slightly more survivable. I expect the first rollout to do significantly less than half damage to us. So here against Scary Carry, we can just come in and go all in on Peck. It's a 3-hit KO no matter what we do. She paralyzes us though, so we'll do a quick heal here and get into the Whitney fight, where Zapdos is now coming in at level 16 with 61 HP. We've got Peck, Thundershock, and Thunder Wave on the moveset. We've got 40 attack, 38 defense, 51 special attack, 40 special defense, and 43 speed. This is a Pokemon where I will give the Gold Berry though. I think it's the best way for us to get through this one. And now on Whitney, let's just test out the ranges here with Thundershock on the Clefairy. It looks to be maybe a 3-hit KO. With the right ranges here, we instead get a 4-hit range, but we do paralyze the Clefairy, so that's perfectly fine. Out next is the Miltank. We are going to go for the Thunder Wave, hoping that the paralysis will break up its rollout here. Instead, it hits 2 in a row and gets a crit, so we lose the first attempt. So back again, we get another critical hit rollout here, but at least after the paralysis, we do get outspeed. We can see we're really not doing much damage though, just slightly less than half after doing 2 Thunder Shocks there. So this is a 5-hit KO with Thunder Shock. Now this time she stomps instead of using rollout, which is actually pretty good for us as long as we can get her to be fully paralyzed. She just refuses to be paralyzed on any given turn, which kind of shows why paralysis really isn't that good. This time we get 2 turns of her being fully paralyzed and a crit, so we finally managed to get through there. What I can say definitively is you need 2 turns of her being fully paralyzed, which is a 6.25% chance, which is the same odds as getting a critical hit. I've tested this quite a bit because I already got through this fight once before, and that's the range that I found you have to get on that Miltank. Now in this one, we got the critical hit as well as 2 turns in a row that she was fully paralyzed. Ideally, you want those 2 paralysis turns to come separately. So she uses rollout, you hit her once, she's fully paralyzed. She uses rollout again, she hits you once, she gets fully paralyzed, and then you can knock her out because you'll have enough HP most of the time to get through if she just hits you with like 2 or 3 rollouts without powering them up. Still, we do manage to get through with our Zapdos. We'll have to see if it's enough in the Morty section with Peck. We could always add on Mud Slap, but I'm not sure it's going to be that strong, so we'll just have to see if this next section is possible or not. So Raikou's real advantage in this challenge is the fact that it's really fast. If it can match the speed or outspeed the Miltank, we could even go bite strats in order to prevent the opponent from hitting us. We could add on a move like Headbutt or Dig here in order to also break up those rollouts so that we have a chance to get through even easier. We're just going to have to see which strategy works out. But the main strategy that I'm going to go for first is if I can match the speed, I'm simply going to go for the bites to try to flinch, or we can go for Thunder Shock and try to get a paralysis just so that we guarantee we outspeed. So we can see as we come into Whitney's gym that at level 16, we are exactly in a speed tie with the Miltank, and that's going to inform our decisions on how to go through this section, because really Bite and Thunder Shock are effectively the same power here, given the fact that we have Stab in Thunder Shock and Bite is already 60 base power. The difference is that when we have the ability to also flinch our opponent, we're better off using Bite, as it's just going to give us better ranges to get through that opponent that's in front of us, whereas Thunder Shock is good when we're slower and we're trying to get paralysis. So coming into the Whitney fight, we're at level 16 with 61 HP, Thunder Shock, Leer, and Bite on the moveset. We've got 38 attack, 35 defense, 47 special attack, 43 special defense, and 48 speed. We're going to slap on a potion real quick just to heal, and I'm going to give the gold berry because I do think it's the best way to get ourselves through this, at least the most consistently. That heal could be important as the rollout builds up, but let's just see if we can manage to get this fight to work. So I'm going to put Bite in the top slot because honestly it's the best strategy for getting through both of these Pokemon. If we can get flinches, that's just gonna be one less turn that we have to take damage, so we can manage to get through pretty reasonably. Here we get a critical hit turn 1 on Miltank and flinch it. It goes for rollout the next turn, but remember we've got a 50-50 shot to outspeed. Instead we get a rollout miss. She milk drinks there, but now she goes for rollout again, and that guarantees the victory on the first attempt for Raikou. It was never really in question with this Pokemon. Raikou is honestly the best of these Pokemon that we've done so far because of the fact that it can go for the flinch strats. Like while Suicune needs a little bit of help, something like a critical hit or a speed drop or something in order to get that fight to go, in this case, you don't actually need that much luck. You just need the standard standard flinches, and Raikou will get through this gym leader. And of course, the speed is going to continue to help us in the next section, where with Bite, we may be able to flinch a Haunter even if we can't one-shot it. That extra turn from the flinch might be all that we need in order to actually get through things like Rival number 3 and Morty. And that brings us to Motres and Entei. And Motres is the one that I'm the most nervous about. It was the worst of the Gen 1 legendaries in Gen 1 when it came to trying to beat the game on minimum battles. It simply fails miraculously because of the fact that fire and flying are both kind of terrible typings in Gen 1. And here it might just be the worst of the legendaries as well. While it's 4 times weak to rollout, which is the same as what we were dealing with Articuno, the big difference for this Pokemon is that it doesn't have something like Freeze to rely on. So it's gonna get through the underground nice and easy thanks to the fact that it has fire type moves for these Magnemites. But when we get to Whitney, we might just be praying for a burn or some kind of misluck in order to get through. So coming into the gym against Mary Carey first, we're just going to go all in on Wing Attack. This is going to be an easy 2-hit KO. Didn't even take any damage in that fight, but now we've got to get to Whitney and we've got to really think about what strategy to use. And honestly, I think the best strategy is to go for the Quick Claw and try to get the burn. If we can burn the Miltank first, it's going to take chip damage and it's going to do less physical damage. It's going to basically cut its physical damage in half, and that might be what we need. So we're coming in at level 16 with Motres with 61 HP. We have Wing Attack, Ember, and Fire Spin on the moveset currently. Remember, we can only really learn Swift or Mud Slap if we're going to go for anything that's not in the unreasonable TMs category. I'm going to hold that Quick Claw, and we're going to come in with 43 attack, 40 defense, 51 special attack, 38 special defense, and 40 speed. Let's see if somehow this can be enough with the Goldberry as our backup option of items to use. So first up here against the Clefairy, there's nothing to do but just go for the Wing Attack the entire way. This is going to be a 2-hit KO with this move. We easily get through the first Pokemon. Now we need to see the ranges on the Miltank. If we simply go for Wing Attack here, we can see that we did 15 damage. That means that this move is going to be a 5-hit KO to knock this Pokemon out. So in the next attempt here, let's see what Ember does. Ember does 14 damage, so very similar amounts of damage here due to the fact that the Miltank has lower special defense than defense. So really we can go for either move. The reason I'm going to spam Ember here against the Miltank is because I'm trying to get the burn. However we do it though, we can see that rollout basically just 2-shots us. Here we do manage to burn though, and I'm going to Fire Spin as well. We got the Quick Claw to activate and a miss, and Fire Spin is doing some chip damage for us. She goes rollout though and gets a critical hit to knock us out. So the real ideal will be if we can manage to hit the Ember first before she gets the chance to use the first rollout. That will cut the damage in half and give us a much better chance of getting through, or she can miss the first rollout, which is also fine by us, but we need a couple misses at least to get through this. So it's pretty clear that the Quick Claw strat just doesn't do enough for us. So the other thing to try is to give the berry and see if maybe with a heal, it obviously depends on how much damage we take from the Clefairy if we even get to use it. But if we get a heal midway through battle plus a miss, maybe we get a better range here. Now it's worth noting that in this case, we're probably better off just going for the Wing Attack since it does deal just a little bit more damage. This time we get the miss that we were looking for. She hits another rollout though, and she knocks us out. Now, here's what I can tell you. I actually managed in the section where I wasn't recording to get through with this Moltres, but what it relied on was number 1, getting very good ranges with my wing attacks, but number 2, she missed rollout on the 2nd and the 4th turn, and I was in a range where I could actually heal up to nearly full health. When I got that range, I was just able to get through this, but otherwise it's completely unreasonable. There's no way that you're getting through with this moveset. Swift obviously does nothing for us because Swift is only 60 base power and would be weaker than Wing Attack. So the only move that we can add on before we go on reasonable TMs to try to get through this is Mud Slap. With Mud Slap, we might be able to get an extra miss or something like that that allows us to eventually get through. Now we know already from lots of experience that Mud Slap when you're slower is not typically a good strategy. Here, however, she's going for Milk Drink because she missed the rollout, and we're just going to set up all the Mud Slaps here. I'm also going to use Fire Spin to get chip damage, and if we can, let's use Ember and try to get the burn on her as well. Here she misses enough rollouts as she sets it up, and we managed to chip her down. So it took 15 attempts to get through that with really good Mud Slap luck. It's probably not actually reasonable to get this fight to go. You'd probably have to go for the Fire Blast strat to be even reasonable here. Keeping in mind, Fire Blast would be 3 times stronger than the Ember that we're using, and therefore would be like a 2-hit KO on that Miltank. You could definitely get the ranges as long as you got the 2 hits, but here it's really borderline with a legendary Pokemon. And that's one of the things that I think people underestimate in these minimum battles challenges is just how significant that slow level up group actually is. A lot of people think, oh, this Pokemon has great stats, so it's going to completely crush the game. No, when you're playing on something like minimum battles, stats hardly matter. What actually matters is levels, because a Pokemon with lower stats that gains more levels on minimum battles is going to have a much higher chance of getting better moves via level up, and will get higher stats due to the fact that level calculates into stats. It's one of the factors that's multiplied when determining what your stats are. So because of that, Motres is really held back by its slow level up group. It just isn't going to be as good as something like a Charizard, which is in the medium slow level up group in this same setup. But now that we've gotten through with the legendary Angry Fire Goose, let's see if we can make the clean sweep with Entei here and finish off these legendaries. Now Entei was the Pokemon that I was on when I realized that I wasn't recording earlier, so this is all brand new to me as well. I don't know exactly what strategy is going to work here. We're going to have to catch ourselves a wild Pokemon and try to get through this section. Now Entei does have a lot of advantages over Moltres. We can go for dig strats here. We have Headbutt for a physical move. Really enough options that if we just need to cheese a little bit, we probably can get it to work. It's certainly going to be a little bit better than that Moltres because we're only 2 times weak to roll out. So in the gym, we can of course take on Mary Carry, where we shouldn't really do anything other than just spam the bite. It's the best way to get through this without any damage, and we are ready to move on to Whitney. So here I'm going to give the Gold Berry to our Entei, and we are coming in at level 16 with 69 HP. Very nice. And we have Bite, Leer, and Ember on the moveset. My first go-to will be Dig if we need a new move. And we're coming in with 48 attack, 38 defense, 39 special attack, 35 special defense, and 43 speed. So our special attacks that we have on the moveset right now are actually using our weaker attacking stat, which is why we might want to upgrade even to something like Headbutt here. But let's just see if this is enough. So first up against the Clefairy, I'm just going to spam Bite. We'll try to get the flinches. It looks like it's a 4 or 5 hit KO here. Turns out to be a 5 hit range. Out next comes the Miltank. I'm going for Ember here to try to get the burn. She misses the second rollout, but we can see that our Embers are really not doing much. Only about 10 to 11 damage per hit as she sets up the rollout, so we're definitely not getting through with this moveset as it is. I'm going to add on Dig right now so that we hopefully have a better range here. Dig will use our higher attacking stat, plus it's going to break up those rollouts. We are in a 3-hit range here on the Clefairy. It goes Dig, very nice. We can just Dig right after, and that's going to guarantee we knock that Pokemon out with no damage. Out next comes the Miltank. I'm going to Leer once and then go for Dig. Let's just see what kind of range we get here as we heal with the Goldberry. We did 16 damage there, so not quite a 4-hit KO range to get through this one. She misses the rollout. She misses rollout again. This time she hits the rollout and we've got her so close. 3 HP remaining, so I think we just need to set up another Leer and we should be good to go. So this time I'm going for 2 Leers here before we go for the dig. Unfortunately, if we do that, she will knock us out with the rollout, so we can only go 1 Leer at a time and then we have to dig after that. However, the problem is that she deals too much damage, so we might actually have to go for the Ember in order to get through this one. So this time I'm gonna go Ember turn 1, trying to get the burn. We didn't get it, so now we're just gonna have to dig here and hope that we can deal enough damage. She rolls out again. We're gonna once again go for the Ember. We don't get the burn, so we're just gonna be resetting here. Here after 12 attempts, we finally get the burn. So now I'm gonna dig after this. We'll heal up while we're underground. And of course, the burn is doing chip damage as well. So I'm gonna Leer at her once and Leer at her twice as she goes for rollout again. And now let's go for the dig. She's stuck using rollout and we finally win, but that's really inconsistent. Yet again, we have to get a burn on the Miltank early in the fight. It's not like you can just get a burn any turn. You basically need that first turn burn in order to get this one to go. And then even then, you're going to have to get the right ranges and hope that you can get the setup that you need. Still, we did manage to get through Whitney on minimum battles with Entei. It's not pretty, but it is possible, and we are ready to move on to the next section where Bite and Dig, I think, gives us enough of a moveset to get through the major opponents in the next section, but we probably have to go to the lighthouse with these legendaries just to gain a couple more levels by fighting the required trainers that are at least available. The key point here is that when I say required trainers, I mean required to beat the game, not necessarily required to beat the next gym leader. And it's a kind of important point. When we look at these minimum battles challenges, we have to look at them in totality, because otherwise we would end up eliminating tons of Pokemon that can't beat a gym leader immediately at the first possible opportunity, when technically there are available battles that they could fight that would get them through within reason. But with that done, we are up to 125 Pokemon getting through this section of the game on minimum battles. We have our last 8 challengers to go now, and I think it's time to get into our pseudo legendaries. We of course have Tyranitar, Dragonite, and Dragonair, and we've got a member pick from Darlax. It is Little Worm, the hydro pumping Dratini. So we're gonna step through all of these, but let's start with the fully evolved forms. Let's see how our Tyranitar and our Dragonite do in this section. So Tyranitar comes into this section with tons of good options. We've got Dig, we've got Headbutt, we've got Fury Cutter if we need it. We already know Sandstorm, and we know the move Bite, which is a same type move here. So we have enough to get us through, I think. The question is just how we're going to perform given the fact that we are going to be fairly slow, but the rock typing should help us out here. Now, Bite is kind of bad given the fact that we don't have a great special attack stat. We'd really prefer to have a physical damaging move, and that's why we might go for the Dig strats here in order to try to get through. Still, I think one way or another, this Pokemon's got to be strong enough to get through this gym, given the fact that it is a rock type Pokemon going up against normal and rock type moves. It shouldn't take too much damage there. But before we mess with anything, let's just go with our moveset as it is and see if we can manage to get through the gym, starting with Scary Carry. We're gonna make her nice and merry by giving her a Sandstorm. And of course, Bite and Lick don't really mean that much to a dark type Pokemon, and then a critical hit Bite just one-shots her from there, so we probably could have just gone for the Bite strat. Still, we get through just fine. That brings us to Whitney, where we can see Tyranitar's coming in at level 16 with 64 HP. We've got Bite, Leer, Sandstorm, and Screech on the moveset. We'd really prefer to just replace Leer with a physical move. And we've got 54 attack, 46 defense, 41 special attack, 43 special defense, and only 30 speed. Still, we can Bite to flinch on the first Clefairy, and then maybe Sandstorm strats are enough. Let's find out. So here we're just going to lead off with the Bites. It's going to be a 3-hit KO on the Clefairy. We get a flinch and then knock it out in 2 more turns. Out next comes the Miltank. I'm just going to go Sandstorm here to see how much damage we do with the chip damage. She misses a rollout. We Bite. Now she goes Stomp, which we don't really care about. and we simply knock her out on the first attempt. It was never in question. Just like that, Tyranitar is moving on to the next section. It's a dark type. It should do great against Morty himself, so it's really just a question of if the rival gives us some sort of issue as we're going through the next section. I don't think he will, as long as we can knock out that Haunter first and prevent ourselves from getting cursed. That's where the Quick Claw might just come in that section, but really we're super powerful, and as we just add on some sort of physical move, I think we're going to crush the next section pretty easily. We'll have to find out though. So that of course brings us now to Dragonite, who I think is going to have a little more trouble here. In this case, we can still learn Fury Cutter, and we can learn things like Elemental Punches here if we want to. The issue is just that we're going to be weak against Rollout, so we're going to have to hope that we deal enough damage. Wrap is really a bad move here. Would love this move in Gen 1, given the fact that we could stop our opponents from moving. We could just go Thunder Wave plus Wrap, but here in Gen 2, it's really not a great strategy. So we're probably going to want to replace that move with something like Headbutt in order to get through this section. But honestly, Fury Cutter might be the best play if we need to add on another move. We'll test this out a few times though, just to see how it works. So starting out on Mary Carey, we're just going to come here and I'm just going to spam Outrage. It's our strongest move by far. Still, this appears to be a 3-hit KO on the Snubble. We even get paralyzed here, but we do knock it out and we can move on to Whitney. And as we come into the gym leader, we're at level 16 with 61 HP. Twister, Leer, Thunderwave, and Wrap is our moveset. We've got 54 attack, 41 defense, 43 special attack, 43 special defense, and 37 speed. Let's see if this is enough to get through. I'm going to give that Goldberry just in case though, because I'm really not super confident. So here against the Clefairy, I'm just going to go for Twister. Let's see the range. This did 13 damage, so it's not even going to be a 4-hit KO. This is going to be a 5-hitter to get through the first Clefairy. Of course, we can flinch opponents with this, but still, 5 hits to get through the first Pokemon isn't great. Still, we do manage to get through. We can move on to the Miltank, where I am going to use Thunder Wave in order to outspeed. Now let's just see if we can get the flinches with Twister at the right times. Get a couple flinches in a row there. She goes Stomp as we heal with the Goldberry. She flinches again, and then a critical hit knocks her out. So first attempt victory against Whitney without any new TMs added on. We did need the Goldberry, but we just got crazy good flinch luck and then a crit at the end. So she didn't even have a chance to go Milk Drink or anything like that. And that is enough to get through that fight. Now I think in the next section, we're gonna have to add something on in order to get through Ghosts, just because Twister doesn't seem to be doing nearly enough damage. A lot of the Ghosts have at least decent special defense, so I'm not sure that it's gonna work. We might also have to use a Quick Claw or something to outspeed to maybe get flinches that way, because that's really all that we've got. We've got the fact that if we outspeed, we can flinch our opponents with our same type move, but honestly, the Dragon type just seems weak because of the fact that we don't have physical Dragon moves in this generation. Still, we got through with Dragonite. Let's check in on Dragonair. Now, Dragonair's issue is that it has a far more limited moveset than Dragonite. It doesn't get things like Fury Cutter here as a fallback, so really we learn things like Headbutt and Swift, and outside of that we have to go all out on overpowered unreasonable TMs. Of course we can learn things like Thunder and Blizzard, but by that point like we're kind of grinding for a small eternity to get there, so we're gonna have to hope that once again the Thunder Wave plus Twister strategy is enough, or maybe the Thunder Wave plus Headbutt strategy. Now we've actually already added Swift on in the last section, giving us that stronger physical move, given that even with a Dragonair, our physical attack stat is much better than our special stat, and at least this move does synergize with Leer, giving us a way to actually deal more damage. The other advantage that we have on Dragonite, of course, is that we are not weak to Rollout, so we're not going to have to worry quite as much about that move. Still, I think it's going to be important to give the Goldberry here as we come into the Whitney fight. Let's check the stats on Dragonair. We're coming in at level 16 with 51 HP. Twister, Leer, Faulkner, Thunder Wave, and Swift is the current moveset. And we've got 38 attack, 32 defense, 33 in everything else. So not great, but we do have that badge boost in attack, making our attack stat a little bit stronger over there. Let's just see if this could be enough. So first up on the Clefairy, I'm going to go all in on the Swift. This is going to be a 4-hit KO from the looks of things. Unfortunately, it takes us below half health just there on the first Pokemon, so we end up using our Gold Berry already. We can Thunder Wave here on the Miltank though, and I'm going to go for Twister to try to get the flinch. Now that she's fully paralyzed, I'm going to set up a couple Leers though, and let's see what kind of damage we do here with the Swift. We're going to need 2 more hits, and unfortunately she stomps us down. Still, let's try this one again, but I'm going to add on the move Headbutt. The advantage of Headbutt, of course, is that not only is it slightly stronger than Swift, it has the chance to flinch our opponents. I think that's going to help us get through this a little more reliably. It's a 3-hit KO there on the Clefairy, and now that the Miltank comes out, we're simply going to Thunder Wave. We'll go for Leer here, and now we're just going to start headbutting this Pokemon. We get a flinch turn 1, and here we heal with the Gold Berry as she went for a stomp, but we simply get a win on that attempt because of the fact that we managed 1 critical hit there. But even if we had just flinched her 1 more time, that would have been perfectly fine. We would have been able to get through. So yeah, Dragonair gets through. Basically, Thunder Wave plus Headbutt strats are pretty good in this section of the game. We'll just have to see how it works out in the next section with the Twister. Of course, we can also learn Surf in the next section, which will at least power up our special moves. The whole issue is just the fact that we don't have anything really great for ghosts on this moveset. But we are through, so now let's move on to the channel member pick and see if Hydro Pump is enough for Dratini to be able to make its way through this section of the game. So now it is time for Darlax 97's Little Worm, and here we have to go back to the start of the game. We struggled to get through the Falkner gym, so we're going to have to add on this Hydro Pump and see if it manages to get us through. Now, Hydro Pump Dratini was an event Pokemon that was available from the New York Pokemon Center in 2002, at least according to Bulbapedia, and that means that this Pokemon, while it's not using an egg move, is using a legitimate move that it could have gotten if you were in the United States at that time. And Hydro Pump, while it's not a same type move, is super powerful, and it's at least not resisted by any of our opponents. Now, I am going up against the Chikorita team here, so that it's not going to be quite as good against our rival, but let's see if that even makes a major difference. So here, Hydro Pump does not very much damage against this first Chikorita, only 4 HP. So we may as well wrap as well here so that at least we can get some chip damage on our opponent and hope that Hydro Pump actually hits and does decent damage when it does. Here with the chip damage, we are in fact going to be able to get through this, though we did end up using our berry on that fight. Still, it is a massive improvement over just having wrap, which basically does nothing. So we will take this as we try to go into the gym and win against Falkner. Now, the next battle that could potentially be an issue is, of course, Honest Abe. He's got that super powerful Spearow. I think we're going to have to give a berry to get through this, but let's see if the Hydro Pump is enough. So here, Peck does 8 damage to us, but we did 10 damage to him with the Hydro Pump, so he's a 3-hit KO. If we can manage to hit 3 Hydro Pumps or get a critical hit, we should be able to win this fight. And it's important to note that we have 4 attempts to get those 3 hits, so we can miss 1 and still win this fight. Still, it's definitely not consistent given the fact that this move does have a 20% chance to miss. Still, we finally manage it. On the 5th attempt, we knock out Honest Abe. Still, we're gonna have to run out and heal up because we've got Rod up next, and we're not going to have enough PP to get through both of his Pokemon without at least getting a heal on. And here, this one's also not great. We have to have a berry on, and the first Pidgey is a 3-hit KO. The second one is a 2-hit KO with the Hydro Pump, but you can also go wrap on the first Pidgey to get the range. So I went that strategy this time because otherwise we would run out of Hydro Pumps before we could knock these Pokemon out. But going into Falkner, I think we have have to hit all 5 Hydro Pumps in order to have a chance to get through this, and we definitely need the berry yet again in order to survive. So let's try him. Let's see if we can beat Falkner with this moveset. We are faster than the first Pidgey, but by the time we miss a couple of Hydro Pumps, I think that's already game over. It is a 2-hit KO on that first Pokemon, and we get to learn Thunder Wave after that, so I'm going to go for that move on the Pidgeotto, just hoping to get an extra turn. Unfortunately, we missed the last of our Hydro Pumps, and I think that's all she wrote for this one. The next attempt, we get a better range on the first Pidgey, but we still missed 1 Hydro Pump there. Still, we can paralyze the Pidgeotto as we heal with our berry, then go for the Hydro Pump. It did 12 damage, so this is going to be a 3-hit KO with Hydro Pump. Still, without a crit, we're just not going to get through this one. If we had all the Hydro Pumps hit though, we should be able to win. It's also possible to get the paralysis and just get really good luck and get through that way. So it took a few attempts, but Little Worm did manage to get through the first gym, and it's finally moving on in the game. We're going to get access to Swift in this next section, which I think is super important because it's going to be far stronger than that wrap that we're using up to this point. So I'm not going to hesitate. I'm just going to throw Swift on because we already know we were using it with Dragonair, and I think it's just the best strategy for getting through here. Now, we still have issues with the rockets down here though. They're not guaranteed wins because we have fairly low HP and fairly low defense. In fact, we're probably better off trying to paralyze these Pokemon to try to get at least 1 extra turn against them. Of course, a berry also helps. So we just barely get through that first rocket grunt, and we're going to have to run out between all of these to heal to get PP back in Hydro Pump, but maybe, just maybe, we can whittle our way through this section. So as we come into the Jamesy Proton fight, we're just hoping that Hydro Pump will do enough damage. It looks like a 3-hit KO here against the Coughing, so as long as we can manage the hits, we will get through that section and get to level 11. Now I think we just take on the randos inside of Bugsy's gym and see if we can beat either of the bosses in this section. So just like that, we are coming into the Bugsy fight. I'm going to give a berry here because I think we need it, and let's see what kind of ranges we get with the Hydro Pumps. On the first Metapod, this appears to be a 2-hit KO with this move. Once we get to Kakuna, I'm actually going to paralyze this Pokemon on the basis that it might be able to get a poison on us, so I'd rather it lose at least a turn or two. 2 Hydro Pumps does knock it out though. We get to level 13 as the Scyther comes out. It goes for Fury Cutter. I'm just going to go for the paralysis first. Now let's go for a Hydro Pump. We'll heal with the berry right there. And now we're out of Hydro Pump PP, so we're gonna have to go for the Swift strats. So 1 Leer into Swift. We need more turns where it's fully paralyzed, but we might just be able to get this one to go. This time we managed to get to Scyther on full health with 2 Hydro Pumps still in the bag. So here I'm going to go for the Hydro Pump. The first one did 11 damage, so this would be a 5-hit KO even with Hydro Pump. Still, if we can manage to get the right ranges here, we might be able to get a win, but we're going to have to get some turns of fully paralyzed or critical hits or something in order to get this one to go. Still, it's pretty clear that that fight isn't going to go. We tried a bunch of times and just got a ton of resets. So let's try the rival instead. We're not weak against Razor Leaf, so we at least have a decent shot here, I think, but let's see how it actually works out. Now, of course, we have to lead off by using Hydro Pump against the Gastly. It's the only move that can hit this Pokemon, and we're actually going to have to land our hits here. It's going to be a 2-hitter to knock this Pokemon out, and once it uses Spite, that's basically the end of the fight. This time we do manage to get through though, so we get to the Zubat. We're also going to try to paralyze this Pokemon. We're just hitting ourselves in confusion every turn, so we're probably losing this attempt. Still, we do manage to get to the Bayleaf. It misses the first Razor Leaf, and we can see we did 8 damage with the first Swift. So if we can get a better range getting to the Bayleaf, we might just have a chance there too, but it's going to take a little bit of luck. This time we're to the Bayleaf with green health. As we get to level 13, it hits a Razor Leaf that did 7 damage to us. We're going to go ahead and paralyze this Pokemon. I'm going to set up Leer a few times as well, hoping that it's just fully paralyzed and it doesn't get any critical hits here. And now we can go all in on the Swift. Reflect fades, it doesn't knock us out, and just like that we do manage to get through the rival. So that gains us an extra level. That means that when we go back to Bugsy, we will level up in that fight as well before we get to the Scyther. That might cause us to do more damage. Keep in mind, level 13 is a damage rounding threshold. It's a spot where we do a little more damage based on how our level factors into the damage calculation. So let's just see if this is enough. So we're back to Scyther again, this time at level 14. It goes Fury Cutter. We're simply going to paralyze this Pokemon, and we still have 3 Hydro Pumps. We just couldn't land any of them. So of course, in this challenge, I'm allowed to get more berries than this. I could go to the Ruins of Alph and get another berry, in fact. So I'm going to slap a berry on here and just see what kind of impact it makes. At this level now, we're doing 12 damage with Hydro Pump as opposed to 11 damage, but we're still getting knocked out at this point because we don't have that much more HP in defense. This time we get the Scyther to be fully paralyzed 4 turns in a row. So we finally win. We get a level up and learn Twister. I'm just going to go ahead and learn this move over Leer, I guess, and we'll just see how this moveset works in the next section. Little Worm is moving on, but that was pretty terrible to get through that fight, even at the higher level. The rival is definitely more consistent for this Pokemon. I'm honestly just not sure how much better we're going to be with Hydro Pump here. Like, Hydro Pump is a strong move, don't get me wrong, but it's not a same type move. If we were a Dragonite with a much higher special attack stat, then maybe it would be pretty decent, but here it's kind of looking weak with this Pokemon. In fact, I did a little test with a trade back Dratini quite a while back in Gen 1 with this move, with Hydro Pump, and I found that it was struggling still to get through things like Rival number 2 because it just simply couldn't deal enough damage. Destroyed Brock on minimum battles, but after that it just hit a hard wall. Still, we've made it this far in the game, so let's just see how far we can keep this going as we come into the underground. So now in the gym, I'm simply going to fight Scary Carry, where we're just going to spam Twister after paralyzing her, hoping for some flinches. We get the easy victory on that one, but now we have to make our way to Whitney. I'm just going to go with a strat very similar to what we did with our Dragonair. We're going to add on Headbutt here so that we use our higher attack stat. We'll learn it over Swift, and let's just see if this could be enough. So coming into Whitney at level 16, Little Worm has 45 HP. We have Hydro Pump, Twister, Headbutt, and Thunder Wave on the moveset, and we're coming in with 31 attack, 25 defense, 27 in everything else, so just a little bit weaker than we were with that Dragonair. We're gonna give that Goldberry because I really think we need it. But Darlax97, you have made it to the 3rd gym leader. Let's see if we can get through. So first up, we've got the Clefairy that we do fortunately outspeed. I'm just gonna Headbutt here and go for the flinches. This is gonna be a 4-hit KO. Still, we managed to get through just fine. We're on to the Miltank, where I'm going to go for the Thunder Wave, but Stomp just completely destroyed me. We've got to have more HP than that when we get to Miltank. This time we get here on full health though. She goes for Rollout and misses the first one. I'm gonna see what the Hydro Pump does here. It did not do that much damage. It did, what, 13 damage there with the Hydro Pump. This time we get a crit, then she stomps us. I think we have to Headbutt and try to get flinches here. Still, the Headbutt isn't doing very much damage, so we're gonna need some luck. We can see that Headbutt does about 7 damage here. We have her fully paralyzed, of course, but she just stomps us down after that. So we're gonna need really good paralysis luck, plus really good ranges from our moves, plus getting to the Miltank on decent HP. So there's a lot that has to go into this one to even have a chance. Here we're getting God tier flinch luck on the 10th attempt. We finally managed to get through with Little Worm. I think we had like 5 flinches on the Miltank there. That was insane, but we did manage to finally get this one to go. It's taken 39 resets to get up to this point, about 10 resets per main boss battle. Really not consistent. Honestly, we probably should have gone like Return or something there, but hey, we managed to get through and we're moving on to the next section where I think we're gonna get crushed. I don't see any way that Hydro Pump is going to be that good against the ghosts. So I think that Little Worm might be about to run out of luck here in the next section. Remember, this is max DVs, but it's still struggled that much just to get to this point with Hydro Pump. Still, it has managed to progress through 3 gyms. Darlax97, thank you so much for joining and supporting the channel. And with that, we have completed our pseudo legendaries, and it's time to get back to our challenge. So with that, we are up to 128 Pokemon getting through this section of the game. Whitney has just let all of these Pokemon get right through her gym, and we are to the final 5 Pokemon, the best of Gen 2. Of course, we've got our Mewtwo, we've got our Mew, we've got the 2 super overpowered birds of Gen 2, and we've got Celebi. Now, technically, Mewtwo, Lugia, and Ho-Oh are the 3 strongest Pokemon in this generation, and I'm interested to see how they do. Let's get to our Mewtwo that for some reason jumped into the fail column. It's just because I changed things on the back end. Let's see how Mewtwo does here, and then check it against Lugia and Ho-Oh, kind of going in ascending difficulty, because Mewtwo starts out with no type weaknesses here, then Lugia's 2 times weak to roll out, then Ho-Oh is 4 times weak to roll out. Let's see how this actually works. Now, personally, I would argue that while they have the same stat spread, Mewtwo remains the strongest of these 3 Pokemon. Even here in Gen 2, it is simply the strongest Pokemon in the game, in my personal opinion. I don't know, debate me down in the comments. Is Snorlax actually better than this Pokemon? I don't think so. Snorlax, while it is very, very good, in competitive formats, sure, it gains a lot of levels, it gets a lot of its level up moves, but as you go through a full game solo run, I don't think that Pokemon even holds a candle to the power of Mewtwo. Mewtwo has so many good TMs and the stats to back them up that, its worst stat is like its defense and special defense, but still, it's just a powerhouse. It deals massive amounts of damage. So I think it just crushes the entire game. That's my prediction anyway. We'll see if it actually works out. So in the gym, we're about to scare Scary Carrie. She's gonna be like, no way, you're coming in here with that thing? Even though we're 2 levels lower, we're just gonna go Confusion and get the easy 2-hit KO. She tried to bite us, didn't matter. We completely crushed that first fight. And here we're going into the Whitney fight where we can check the stats on our Mewtwo. We are coming into this fight at level 16 with 66 HP. Confusion, Disable, and Barrier is the moveset. And we've got 46 attack, 40 defense, 60 special attack, 39 special defense, and 53 speed. We'll outspeed the entire way, and I think that Stab Confusion is gonna be enough with our high special attack stat. Let's see if it actually works. So first up, we've got the Clefairy. I'm gonna go Confusion here. It goes Double Slap. I'm actually gonna take this opportunity to set up some barriers as well, just so that we're more survivable. It went Pursuit with the Metronome. That was actually pretty good on its part. Here we end up healing with a berry, but we do knock that Pokemon out. Out comes the Miltank. We're simply going to go for the Confusions here. It goes for Rollout, and it never had a chance. We simply won. We didn't need a gold berry. Standard berry is all that it took. Yes, we got a critical hit at the end, but the next rollout was not going to knock us out because we had so many barriers set up. So we were just going to knock it out there and get the easy victory. And of course, Mewtwo should have no issues against rival number 3 or Morty. Against rival 3 for the Magnemite, we may have to add on a move, but then just add on Fire Punch and we're good to go. So yeah, I think we just crush the next section. But that does it for Mewtwo. Now we have to see how the uber legendary birds of Gen 2 do, where, they are going to have a type weakness here. We'll start with Lugia and see how it goes. Now, Lugia is another one of my test Pokemon before I started this series. This was one of the few Pokemon that I actually took beyond into the Whitney section, but I was doing that test run initially on 0 DVs. And I can tell you on 0 DVs, this Pokemon was terrible. Absolutely terrible against Whitney. I was getting completely crushed with this Pokemon. But this time we're coming with max DVs, and I've told you guys before that DVs matter here. They are making a significant impact in how strong our Pokemon is, even when we're at lower levels. Like at level 15, sure, it's maybe like 4 or 5 points in our stats, but those 4 or 5 points matter when edges are this close. I was also trying to run this one without TMs in that, however, so I didn't have Swift and I didn't have Mud Slap when I was doing that test run. Those are two things that we do have here that could help us out. Still, Headbutt is the only new move that we can add on without going unreasonable TMs here. We've got plenty of coverage outside of that, so if Headbutt isn't enough to get us through this section, then we may be able to go for something else. Of course, Aeroblast, the issue is that it only has 5 PP, so we do need another good move, I think, to be able to get through that Miltank and the Clefairy. So here as we come into the gym against Scary Carry, I'm actually just going to spam Swift on this Pokemon because I want to save the Aeroblast PP if I can, and we easily get through that fight every time, so, you know, Merry Christmas, Scary Carry. There's nothing to worry about. Easy victory, and we're on to Whitney. Here our Lugia is coming in at level 16 with 66 HP, Aeroblast, Mud Slap, Swift, and Safeguard on the moveset. We're holding a berry right now. I think we've got to throw a gold berry on though. And we're coming in with 40 attack, 52 defense, 40 special attack, 60 special defense, and 46 speed. So we're just too slow to outspeed the Miltank here, and I think that's going to be pretty relevant. Now, admittedly, when I was doing test runs before, I did not know about the gold berry that was available from Machop, so I was just using standard berries here, and so that also could have affected things. I don't remember, but let's just see how the range actually works out with this Lugia on max DVs. So here first, I'm going to go for Aeroblast on the Clefairy. It nearly gets the one-hitter. We get hit by a Mega Kick after that though, so we'll knock that one out with a Swift. Out next is the Miltank. It goes roll out, we go Aeroblast. We did about a third, 25 damage there. So if we can just get one crit, we will win here. Or if we survive that hit, very nice. With 8 HP remaining, we did manage to survive against Whitney, even without any misses, thanks to that gold berry. As you can see, without a gold berry, we would have lost. And you can probably guess that given the fact that we're on max DVs, the ranges are a little bit worse when you're running on 0 DVs. And in that case, you might not be able to get that 3-hit range. It might be a 4-hit range to get through. Critical hits obviously will get you through eventually, or you can go Mud Slap strats as another way to try to steal at least a turn off of her. At the end of the day, it's definitely not a super consistent fight by any means if you're on less than max DVs. Max DVs, however, it seems like with the gold berry, you can get through that one consistently. Still certainly not as good as the Mewtwo, and now we have to move on to an even worse Pokemon for this section, which is Ho-Oh. So Ho-Oh here really doesn't get many options. It's already got Swift and Mud Slap, but anything else that we want to add on is going to take us into the overpowered unreasonable TMs category, so we're gonna have to see if this set is enough. Now Sacred Fire could get us some burns, and of course it is a very nice same type move, so that may be the strategy for getting through this section. Still, of these 3 uber legendaries, I think this Pokemon is by far the worst. Keep in mind that the most important stats in this specific section are basically speed and defense, and that's where this Pokemon's really going to struggle. Its defense is its lowest stat, as is its speed. Compare that to Lugia, which at least had good defense while it had low speed, or Mewtwo that had really good speed while it had low defense. I think this Pokemon might just struggle the most to get through this section, together with its 4 times weakness to roll out. It's also notable that, like a lot of fire types, we have a high attack stat and a lower special attack stat, which really isn't what you want to see when your best move is Sacred Fire. So I'm gonna just try to go for the Swift here on the Snubble. We get an easy 3-hit KO fortunately and take no damage from Mary Carey, so we can make our way to Whitney, and I'm gonna see what these stats are currently. We are at level 16 with 66 HP. HP, we have Sacred Fire, Mud Slap, Swift, and Safeguard on the moveset. And we've got 52 attack, 40 defense, 46 special attack, 60 special defense, and 40 speed. Let's give that Gold Berry and get into this fight. I think the best strategy that we have is to hope that we get the burn on the Miltank on the first turn, and then hopefully, because Sacred Fire is fairly strong, it's enough to get us through. So here on the first Clefairy, I'll give it one Sacred Fire, and we missed, of course. Let's try this again. And yeah, that move did not do nearly enough damage, so it's a 2-hit KO still to get through once we use Swift. But now on the Miltank, I'm going Sacred Fire. I'm hoping for a burn. We did really good damage with the first Sacred Fire though. We did 32 damage there. It's a 3-hitter at that range, but we get knocked out the very next turn. Without a burn, there's no way that we get through this. This time we do get the burn on the Miltank and we heal up. She goes roll out again. She's hurt by the burn, and that is enough to get us through. We need the burn plus the chip damage, but then it is just a 2-hit KO with Sacred Fire on that Miltank. So we do progress in the game. We're gonna have to see how the Sacred Fire works in the next section as we go into Morty, but for now we are progressing with Ho-Oh, and that does it for the 3 kind of uber legendaries of this generation. But there is one more Pokemon that I think is potentially going to become an uber legendary. That is the channel member pick that I chose to assign to Gen 1er. It's time for our Shuckle. So let's pick up Shuckle right here in front of Falkner, where it completely struggled to get through this section. It's still neutrally affected by moves like Gust, and this Pokemon, its best attacking move at this point was Wrap. Given the fact that it has the incredibly low base 10 attack and special attack, it obviously doesn't deal much damage. Its speed is also completely trash, but its claim to fame is that it has those massive defense and special defense stats. Well, a move like Rollout, being a same type move for this Pokemon, has the potential to make it really, really strong because it's a move that builds up each and every turn. So by doing that, we might just have a shot of getting through. So Gen 1er, I chose this Pokemon for you. If you don't want it, if you want a different one, let me know in the comments. But for now, let's get into this Falkner fight and see if just adding Rollout is enough to make Shuckle much, much better. So here, Falkner attempt number 1, I'm just going Rollout. Of course, we're going to get mud slapped by the Pidgey, but fortunately, accuracy strats aren't that overpowered in Gen 2. Here, of course, we do actually have to land the rollouts, but we can see we did really good damage and we get through on the first attempt. Didn't even need the berry there. Didn't need to go with draw strats, anything ridiculous like that. Rollout is the ideal move for this Pokemon. It all comes down to the fact that in spite of the fact that we have a low attack stat, because Rollout simply doubles damage every single turn, even if you have a really low stat to begin with, if you double it 4 times, it's gonna be much, much stronger. And the fact that it is a same type move is really helping us out here, because that also means that the power of Rollout is effectively doubled as well. And now this move should get us through Bugsy pretty easily, I would expect, because of the fact that, hey, we are guaranteed to have a super effective move on all of his Pokemon. It's going to be 4 times super effective on Scyther, and by then it should be completely built up, so we may just have an easy win in that gym as well. Still, we first have to get through the rockets in the Slowpoke well, but I think this is going to be pretty trivial. Let's find out. And sure enough, we make it to Jamesy Proton with no difficulty on any of the rockets so far, and I'm simply going to go for Rollout here and see if we can manage to build it up enough to knock this coughing out. Of course, he's going for Smog. He poisoned us, and we missed a Rollout, which is kind of the worst case scenario here. We actually ended up having to use our original berry at this point, but we do knock him out and gets to level 14. We could learn Encore. We're not going to learn Encore. I don't think we need it. Let's go ahead and move on to the gym and see how we do with the Rollout strats. Of course, the randos in the gym were no issue whatsoever, so we make our way straight to Bugsy, and we're going to try to beat him on this first attempt with our bug Pokemon, who also is a rock type. So I'm just going straight for the Rollout here on the first Metapod. We missed the second Rollout, which was too bad, but we do manage to knock it out in 2 more turns turns after that. Kakuna comes out, it goes for Harden. Good strategy, but it still goes down in one hit. Scyther is out, it goes for the Fury Cutter as we miss a rollout, but it only takes 2 hits when we start a new one to knock it out. We win on the first attempt and get to level 17. And the fact that we are in the medium slow level up group means that we're gaining a lot of levels here, and that is also helping us to get better ranges on our opponents. Now it's time to take on rival number 2. He has the Totodile team, so we don't have any sort of type advantage here, and he does have super effective water gun to use against us. Let's see how this actually works out. So against the Gastly, of course, the big issue is that it can put us to sleep. It could even use things like Spite while we're asleep. We could never outspeed here, but here we set up the rollout. It's going to take 3 hits to knock out the Gastly. Out comes the Crocodile, goes for water gun. A single rollout nearly took it down, but we level up and knock it out as we get to level 18. We're setting up a new rollout here. We're getting flinched a bunch by the Zubat though, so we lose. Here, let's try giving a berry just so that we're a little more survivable here and try this one again. So once again, Crocodile takes us to low health, but we get a heal with the berry this time, and rollout as we start to set it up takes 2 hits to knock out the Zubat, so only 1 reset there on the rival. And we've gotten all the way to this section of the game now where we can go take on Whitney with only 1 reset. And arguably, if I had just put a berry on that one, we probably would have won because it's not like Bite was doing that much damage. So yeah, Shuckle, aw shucks, he is doing very nicely now that he has access to rollout. Now, of course, I have just like all the TMs in the bag here. That's just for simplicity, guys. But we have made it to this section where we're legitimately not using any of those TMs until we get to the point where they're actually available. And for Shuckle, I don't think he needs any TMs. He's ready to go straight to Whitney and I think completely destroy her. I will do the underground just so I can get my Abra and my Machop, you know, that whole thing. But still, I think this is going to be a pretty easy section of the game. So now in the gym, we're going to come say Merry Christmas to Carrie, and we're just going to start rolling out on her. She can go Scary Face. It doesn't really matter. We're already super slow. She can Charm. It doesn't matter. We're already super weak. We just need to build up the rollout. I think we got this. She is paralyzing us and things like that though, so this is pretty trolly. Still, I think we're going to get this one to go eventually. Sure enough, we managed to win. We get to level 20. Let's just pop out and heal, and then it's time to take on Whitney. So coming into the Whitney fight with Aw Shucks, we are at level 20 with 45 HP. We have Rollout, Withdraw, Constrict, and Wrap on the moveset. We've got 17 attack, 105 defense, 16 special attack, 104 special defense, and 15 speed. We're not going to outspeed anything, not even the Clefairy. I don't think it's going to matter. Let's just go all in on the Rollout strat. So here she Metronome Slam, which does nothing. Then she mimics Rollout. She tries to hit it, but she misses. So we knock that Clefairy out in 3 hits. She's going Rollout, we're going Rollout, but our Rollout is more powerful and we easily beat Whitney on the first attempt. No resets, no berries. Come on. Aw Shucks is the one. He is by far and away the strongest Pokemon in Gen 2. Convince me otherwise, but this Pokemon might be in for some trouble in the next section. We don't have any good way to take down Ghosts, so Curse is probably going to be the end of Aw Shucks, but still, we have managed to make it through 3 gyms and 2 rivals with only 1 reset, which is kind of ridiculous, honestly. And it tells us that, man, if they had just given this Pokemon a move like Rollout from the start of the game, it would have been completely overpowered. Of course, you can just trade it to another cartridge and get this move, so that's the way to go. But still, we managed to win with Aw Shucks, and he joins, at least in my mind, the uber legendaries of Generation 2. And with that done, we have only 2 legitimate challengers remaining. 131 Pokemon have beaten Whitney so far. Add on those 8 Pokemon in the unreasonable TM/struggle section, we're up to nearly 140 Pokemon getting through this, with only Unknown having failed so far. And honestly, most of these Pokemon outside of Houndour, I think were reasonable enough to legitimately say that they get through. Honestly, it was Houndour, kind of Mantine too. Mantine was kind of trash, but the rest of them seemed to make sense and seemed pretty reasonable to get through this section of the game. So now it's just time to check on the last 2 challengers Mew and Celebi, and then we've got one more channel member pick to wrap up the episode. So let's get into it. Let's start with Mew, the Pokemon that can learn literally everything. So if it struggles at all, we just throw on the rollout or the Fury Cutter or something, and I'm sure we get through. Let's see how it goes. Now, it's important to note that just because Mew does learn every single TM in the game doesn't mean that every TM is good for it to learn. Obviously, it doesn't have a sleep move, so it can't learn Nightmare and really do anything with it. The elemental punches are probably our best bet in this section if we need new moves for coverage, and otherwise I think rollout and Fury Cutter are the best strategies against Whitney. Still, I always hated the fact that this Pokemon started the game with only Pound, which is like the worst move ever. We're gonna have to hope that we get better moves via TM pretty quickly in this one. Now, we are in that medium slow level up group, so we will gain one more level here in this section of the game, and at level 20 we do get to learn Mega Punch. I'm not sure if it's actually that much better than anything else that we can learn here, but hey, it is a level up move, so we will add it on over Pound. So here against Carrie, it's just 3 Swifts to knock her out, then we get the Mega Punch, so we'll just learn that move, and it's time to go take on Whitney and see how this Pokemon actually goes. So coming into this fight, we're at level 20 with 77 HP. Mew is running with Swift, Transform, Mega Punch, and Mud Slap, and we've got 53 attack and defense, 52 in both specials, and 53 speed, so we will outspeed here. Let's just see how this goes. So first up, I'm gonna go for Mega Punch here since it is technically the strongest move on our moveset. It's gonna be a 2-hit KO to knock out the first Clefairy, very nice. Out comes the Miltank next. We could do a lot of things here, but I'm actually gonna transform into Miltank. I think this is kind of hilarious. So here now we can attract her Miltank. Oh wait, no, because we're the same gender, so we can't attract. No, I thought I was still male. Or I guess I'm genderless. No wonder I can't do anything with that. But still, let's try this one again because of course we can use Milk Drink to heal up. So I will simply do that. Let's get one Milk Drink on there. Let's now try to stomp on her Miltank in order to maybe flinch it. It didn't work. We're probably better off not doing this sort of trolley strategy. Let's just try this one again. So now let's just see the range on the Miltank. We did 18 damage with the Mega Punch, so this is a 4-hit KO. She's going rollout, but it doesn't matter. We land all the hits. If you don't mess around here and just go all in on attack with the Mega Punch, you easily win that fight. We'll have to learn new moves in order to take out Ghosts in the next section because I don't think Mud Slap's enough, but we've got all the elemental punches available to us. I think it's going to be perfectly fine to get through the next section. And because we have basically balanced stats, yes, our attack is slightly higher right now because of badge boosts, but really we can use special moves, we can use physical moves. It doesn't really matter with this Pokemon. Just use whatever is best for the opponent in front of us. So I think we're going to have a pretty easy time getting through the next section, but we'll just have to see. Transform is probably the first move to go though, because Transform strats honestly just aren't very good. So just like that, we are to our final Pokemon in this legit series, which is Celebi. And obviously the protector of Ilex Forest is going to have, I think, an easier time in this gym than the last two. It's been a crazy gauntlet for Celebi so far, going through both Falkner and Bugsy with arguably the worst Gen 2 typing, and yet this Pokemon has managed to get through to this point. And because we have Confusion, Leech Seed, Recover, Heal Bell, we've got a great moveset for getting through a lot of types of opponents, and we can simply set up Leech Seed and then spam Confusion. I think get through most opponents without too much issue. Be honest, it's kind of hilarious that Leech Seed can even work on Pokemon like Magnemite, because how do you leech like a floating magnet thing? But you know, it's Pokemon, it works. Now we don't get a whole lot in the way of learnable TMs in this section of the game, like what we could go for Mud Slap basically and Swift. Still, we are nearly in the range to get access to Ancient Power as well, and that could be a decent move to add on. So here as we come up against Scary Carry, I'm just gonna go all in on Confusion and try to knock this Pokemon out. It's just gonna take 2 hits here. It's an easy KO. We get to level 20 to learn Ancient Power. I'm gonna learn this over Heal Bell. We could use all kinds of different berries in order to avoid statuses, so I think this is the best way to go. Like, Heal Bell's pretty good in some sort of competitive setting where you can heal your teammates, but here we don't really need that. Let's just go with the Ancient Power power and see how this actually works out as we go through the game. I'm prioritizing keeping Leech Seed and Recover because they heal damage in battle, which I think are pretty useful things to have. Let's go ahead and try Whitney as we are and just see if this is enough. We're coming in at level 20 with 77 HP, Confusion, Leech Seed, Recover, and Ancient Power on the moveset. And just like Mew, we've got 53 in attack, defense, and speed, and 52 in both of our specials. Still, it's just some sort of rounding with the specials, probably because we have a little less stat XP in those stats, but we should be doing just fine here. Let's just see how this goes. So first up on the Clefairy, I'm just going to go for Confusion. We confuse the Clefairy, very nice. It goes Rock Slide against us. I don't think that matters. I'm going to Leech Seed here, and then I'm just going to get a little heal on. Oh, we didn't mean to go for that twice, but here we'll just Recover, and then how about an Ancient Power to just finish this Pokemon off. Out comes the Miltank. I'm going Confusion turn 1. We get a nice critical hit. We shouldn't even need to mess around. It hits itself in Confusion though, so we easily win and get to level 21 on the first attempt with Celebi. It was never in question. This Pokemon, it's obviously one of the best in Gen 2. In spite of the fact that its typing is actually trash for this generation, I think we're going to do okay for a little while. We've got good moves against Morty. We're going to do decently good against Chuck, I expect. So it's Jasmine and Price that could be issues. Obviously, we're weak against Ice, and we're going to have troubles with the Steel types. We're just going to have to hope that we can find ways through those two gym leaders. Honestly, Mud Slap and healing in battle might be really, really important when we get to Jasmine. We're just going to have to see what kind of strategy works there. But for now, we have made it through this section of the game, and we are moving on to Morty. And that, of course, brings us to the final Pokemon of this episode. It is time for the Delibird. It is currently about 5 minutes till midnight on Christmas Eve here in Japan. As I'm recording this, I'm going to be trying to edit this and get this out in time for Christmas for those of you in the United States. And yeah. This Pokemon is obviously incredible. The fact that it was inherited by Q, thank you very much. We are running Santa Q, the Delibird that saved Christmas. Of course, we gave this Pokemon access to new moves in the previous section. It got Aurora Beam as an egg move. It has Present, it has Mud Slap, it has Swift. We're just going to see if this is enough to get through this section. Obviously, we're really, really weak against Rollout, but maybe it works. Who knows? Here in the underground, I'm just going to spam Present on these Slowpokes because, hey, everybody needs a present, but we're going to go for the Mud Slaps here because clearly Teru has been a bad boy, and instead of lumps of coal, we're giving Mud Slaps in the face of his Magnemites as his punishment for being a bad boy this year. Clearly, he's standing next to this exit over here. He's like trying to sneak into the back. You know what I'm saying? He's been just kind of chilling right here next to this bush, like nobody noticed me. Clearly a bad boy. He's been helping Team Rocket get in there. That's my prediction anyway. Now, of course, Delibird as an ice type. In the worst case scenario, I think we can go Blizzard. And of course, we get Headbutt in this section, but we don't get a whole lot in terms of moves that can actually improve this Pokemon. So we're just going to have to kind of hope that what we currently have is enough. We're also not going to be able to outspeed here against the Miltank, so we're going to need some crazy luck, I think. Still, let's come and see Mary Carey first. Let's just wish her a very Merry Christmas as we spam the presents. We actually healed her on the first one, and here we're healing her again. Yeah, we're actually giving Mary Carey presents because we've been beating her up on her this entire series. Finally, we do knock her out, but we felt a little bad, so yeah, makes sense. But just like that, it is time to get into the Whitney fight for the last time in this series. At level 19, Santa Q, the Delibird, is coming in with 53 HP, Aurora Beam, Present, Mud Slap, and Swift on the moveset, and we've got 33 attack, 29 defense, 37 special attack, 29 special defense, and 41 speed. I think we're getting destroyed by Rollout, but let's give that Goldberry and just see how this goes. Oh, and I didn't even get the Machop yet. Rip. I'm gonna go fix this. So let's just see now with the Goldberry on how we do against Whitney. I expect pain here, but let's find out. First up, against the Clefairy, I'm gonna go present and just see what kind of damage we do. She misses the first double slap, then she misses the poison gas, then we heal her, then she goes tail whip. That was really bad. Now she's mimicked present, and finally she damages us and we're gonna knock her out. But with the defense drop, I think we're just dead against the Miltank. Sure enough, rollout just destroyed us. Let's try this one again. Let's just see if we get through on higher HP, what it actually looks like. This time I'm gonna go Aurora Beam since it is technically our strongest move. She goes Pin Missile, which doesn't really matter. It's gonna be a 3-hit KO on the Clefairy here. Out comes the Miltank. It goes rollout. That did massive damage. Our first Aurora Beam did 20 damage to the Miltank. So technically, if we got 2 critical hits, we would knock that Pokemon out. But still, I don't think that that's reasonable here. This time we get through on full health to the Miltank. We're gonna heal right here, but it's not gonna be enough. We simply get knocked out the next turn. So I think the solution, guys, is Blizzard. Blizzard is like double the power of that Aurora Beam, but it also has the chance to freeze, and that is the real key here. Aurora Beam just drops attack on some percentage chance, but even with an attack drop, we're just getting knocked out the next turn there. So I think Blizzard is the way to go. I'm just going to go Swift here on the first Clefairy. We get Confuse Raid and then Milk Drink. Let's try this one again because that one's definitely not looking good. Yes, I know I've got 20 PP in Blizzard. Come on, it's Christmas time. This is perfectly appropriate. Still on such a low health, I think we just get rolled out and destroyed by Miltank, but no, we actually survive there. Then she misses with a rollout, and the next rollout kills us. We got so close there. Back to the Miltank, this time on full health though. We hit the Blizzard. We still do not manage the freeze. That's what we need, is the freeze, guys. Once we freeze, I think we're good to go. This time we get a critical hit on the Miltank. It almost took it down. If she just missed the next turn, we would have won, but unfortunately it wasn't enough. We got to teach Whitney about giving something back to us for all this time that we've spent on the Whitney Minimum Battles series. This has been such a grind to get through this, but 3 gyms officially are finished at this point. We're just trying to put a nice little ribbon on top of this section of the game here. So yeah, this time we get the rollout miss. She goes for Milk Drink, of course, but I'm going to go for the Blizzard. And finally we knock Whitney out after 20 attempts. We were actually able to win that fight, get to level 20 with Santa Q, and we are moving on with Delibird. It took Blizzard to get this to go. It wasn't consistent even with Blizzard, but hey, Merry Christmas, guys. We have gotten yet another Pokemon through this section. And I guess we should say that Whitney might be the most cheerful, joyful gym leader in all of Johto. Not only did she only defeat one of our Pokemon, for the vast majority of them, she gave them pretty easy victories. She gave some Pokemon victories that didn't deserve to win this section. Whitney just turned out to be rather generous at the end of the day. In spite of the fact that she says that she's tough, turns out that she's actually just giving out the W's, guys. So let me just give a massive thank you to Q for saving Delibird in time for Christmas. I appreciate your support. Thank you for joining the channel membership. Thank you to all of the channel members, who I'm gonna give some quick shout outs to. Rennie Iguanetti, thank you for joining the Kanto Champion tier. He is the highest tiered channel member at this point on this channel. Thank you so much for your support. It means a lot. In the Johto Champion tier, we have Toxic Cross, we have Tamanoo, Darlax97 with his little worm from this episode, and Mobile Gaming Chronicles. Thank you guys so much for your support. And finally, we've got tons of people in the New Bark starter tier. You can join even at the lowest tier to support a Pokemon in this Minimum Battles series, and there are tons and tons of members there. Of course, we've got Roy Merkel and Pokemon WWW411 Mark II have been supporting for 14 months. Dad Oh Gosh has been here for 11 months. Johnny Plays 911, 10 months. We've got Caleb M sporting the Fog badge there, as is Wafer King PM. Star DF always giving the great breakdowns and spoilers. Don't think there's going to be a lot to spoil in this section, but trust me, Morty's going to add on some work for you. Patrick Vogler, the Cake King, Redeemed Steve, Haken Bacon, Dead Rise for No One, Sable Mike. We've got Jen Wunner from this episode. Shubham Varshini, thank you for your support. Chad Powers, thank you. Then Ashryver, Q, TheProgrammedKnight, and Luckpup all coming in this final episode to save Pokemon. It's a lot of fun, guys. Thank you so much. I gotta say, my Christmas always comes early because I get to play Pokemon and post it and have fun people enjoy this with me. So I just want to say a massive thank you to all of you. Morty Minimum Battles will be coming. I will be getting that set up very soon, but it is the holidays. I'm going to take a little bit of time with my family. I'm going to possibly post a couple other little challenges. And by the end of the year, I think we'll have our first episode in the next section. So we will simply see the final results of the Whitney Minimum Battles series, and I wish you all a very happy Merry Christmas. If I don't see you in time, a Happy New Year as well. And let's just keep this going in 2025, guys. Anyway, that's my word. Appreciate you hanging out with me. See you in the next one. Later.